Joe Major serves as a Vermont state senator. Although a freshman senator, he brings a wealth of leadership experience and dedication to public service. Originally from Buffalo, New York, Joe graduated from Howard University, also the alma mater of Kamala Harris. They were class fellows. Joe served as an officer and gentleman in the U.S. Army. He is the executive director of the Upper Valley Aquatic Center in White River Junction, where he passionately promotes health and wellness. It's a gorgeous center of community engagement, one of the best places in the Upper Valley. In the local government, Joe served as treasurer of the town of Hartford and as vice chair of the Hartford Select Board. In these roles, Joe fine-tuned his financial expertise and commitment to the town's welfare and progress. Joe's dedication to Vermont is driven by his varied experience and background, as well as his interest in arts and culture of the Upper Valley. And most of all, Joe's abiding faith in the essential goodness of human beings in the larger community. Hello, Americans and people all over the world. This is America Unbound, the podcast where we explore issues in politics, culture, technology, and international relations. I'm your host, Narain Batra. I am pleased to welcome Joe Major, a public figure of many accomplishments and a rising political star. Joe, welcome to the conversation.
I am going to have a tremendous talk with you today with that great introduction. I appreciate that, and thank you for having me today.
So you are the director of the executive Upper Valley Aquatic Center. It's a full-time demanding job. So, but now you are a senator also. So how do you describe, if I ask you, a day in the life of a Vermont senator? How do you balance your professional, public, and private life?
Well, one of the things that my mom said when I was young, if you're busy, it keeps you out of trouble. So I'm not getting in any trouble, that's for sure. So 4 days a week, the Senate is in session, and I'm up in Montpelier, which is the capital of Vermont. And 3 days a week, I am here in White River Junction at the Aquatic Center. Now, our session is from January till approximately May. It depends on how many vetoes that the governor has that we have to stay in session and try to override. At the very least, it may go through till June, but generally it's from January till May. And then the rest of the time, I'm here full-time in White River Junction. It is a busy day. I'm not going to say it's not. It is. I'm up very early in the morning. I try to get a little bit of a workout in, and then I'm at the Capitol through till about 5 o'clock. Then it's meeting with either constituents in Montpelier or returning emails or going to some kind of lobby event. So it is very busy. Also, when I'm at the Aquatic Center, it is running a business. The Aquatic Center is a $4 million revenue business, and we have 130 employees, so that's a heavy lift as well. But one of the things that I have to say is that I enjoy it immensely. I would not trade my life for anything in the world. Because I am busy, because I am doing so much, because I am, in my opinion, trying to help people in one way or another, it's just so incredibly enjoyable.
The Aquatic Center serves how many communities?
It serves all of the Upper Valley. and that on both sides of the river, both in New Hampshire and in Vermont. Although we are based in Vermont, we actually have more New Hampshire members than we do Vermont members. And it is, for me, just a labor of love. I've been in the health and fitness field for over 30 years. I've managed 11 clubs up and down the East Coast, from Vermont and New York, Buffalo, Miami, Washington, Baltimore. And it's something that has been, like I said before, a labor of love. There was a portion of the time, I got burnt out in managing people. It is very, very difficult to manage people, and I took a bit of a hiatus. I was, at the time, managing the Downtown Athletic Club in Miami, and I looked at my wall, and it had my degree, and my degree is in broadcast journalism. And I took a little time out, took a massive pay cut, and became a sportscaster in Maryland. And then every journalist, particularly in sports, wants to work in their hometown. So I got an opportunity to work for the ABC affiliate in Buffalo, WKBW, and I worked there for 4 years. And then I wanted to get back into the health and fitness field, and so I did that. And 20 years later, I'm still doing it.
Well, coming back to the government works through committees and agencies, And what committees are you on, and why did you select them? How important are these committees from your point of view, assignments?
So I'm in the Senate. You're on two committees. I am the vice chair of the Agriculture Committee, and in the afternoon, my afternoon committee is institutions. Institutions deals with government buildings, corrections, as well as a new subject matter that we're in charge of is IT. Let me go back to agriculture for a little bit. Agriculture is interwoven into the fabric of Vermont. And unfortunately, it has been taking a bit of a hit as of late, both from the federal government and reducing subsidies to things that are out of farmers' control, such as weather events in particular. I'll give you a statistic. Over the last 4 years, Vermont farmers have lost over $55 million. And that's unsustainable for a lot of farmers and pushing a lot of farmers out. We have, take dairy farmers, for instance, from 2012 to 2022, we have lost almost 40% of our dairy farmers. And so we have to find a way to sustain our farm industry. The other thing, and I'll talk about my afternoon committee, and that is institutions, dealing with all the government buildings and how they're operating and the upkeep of them, plus our institutions. We have some serious problems with particularly our female institution. We have one female institution which is in South Burlington, and it is in incredible disrepair. What we're trying to do right now is to find a place to build a new women's prison. The other side of that, we have a prison that is no longer in use in Windsor. We have a housing problem. I am trying very hard to get community leaders, developers together to develop that piece of land that we have in Windsor and make it a housing project. It has the land, it has the infrastructure, and it is going to, it's a lot of money, and that runs everything. But it is something that is vitally needed in Vermont, and so we're going to work on trying to make that happen.
With so much work, you must be having quite a big staff. You work alone.
When I wake up in the morning and look in the mirror, there's my staff. It is me. We don't have staff in the Senate. We pretty much do everything ourselves. I have a couple of interns that from UVM, and they are very hardworking. But other than that, I'm answering my own emails. I'm going out to my own events. I'm scheduling. Making my own schedule, so talk about long days.
Coming to politics, in Vermont, is Vermont as polarized as rest of the country, Republicans and Democrats? Do they get along very well?
So prior to me going to the Senate, I really had no idea. I'd heard that they get along pretty well. But it really is a collegial atmosphere in Montpelier. Now, all that said, we do have our differences from a philosophical standpoint. But we can get things done. Half the bills that I have sponsored with Republicans, more than half. And we can get things done. But there are some issues that we have definite problems with. I mean, the governor's is I'm not his favorite person right now. More because I'm a proponent of universal school meals, and he is not. And I have called him out on it. And he didn't take to it very kindly. But even above and beyond that, I'm still on one of his committees. I'm on the governor's committee on the employment of people with disabilities. And so we can get some things done without having the rhetoric or the contention that you see on the national level.
Are the Republicans in Vermont any different from the Republican rest of the country?
One of the things with when you see things in the media, there's an old saying, if it bleeds, it leads. And if there's controversy, then that's what the national, because they have to get ratings, that's what the national politics is focused on. And you don't see the members of Congress or the members of the Senate that do get together and do get things done. It is very much like that here in Vermont. We have been able to work together to get several things done. And there are those times where we disagree and have vehement debates. You're going to have that with different parties. But for the most part, Republicans, and I will point to this as a point of fact, the governor of this, who is the most popular governor in the country with his approval rating, is a Republican and voted for Kamala Harris. So that should tell you something, that they look beyond the veneer and really look to the substance of things.
Yeah. I'm going to talk to you about Bernie Sanders, Until last year, Senator Bernie Sanders, with his idealism, fierce idealism, activism and populist political rhetoric and persona, had kept Vermont in a kind of forefront of American political consciousness. Vermont looked larger than it is really. But now with the rise of Trump's MAGA juggernaut, I would say, Vermont looks very small, certainly unimportant. Senator Patrick Leahy did a lot for Vermont. He retired. His voice is gone. And now when Bernie speaks, his voice is more like lost in wilderness. So the question is, first of all, do you agree with my assessment? I mean, just...
So let's talk about Senator Leahy first. Senator Leahy was in the Senate so long, then and it became so powerful, and Vermont benefited from that financially, exponentially. I mean, I don't think a lot of Vermonters really realize how many earmarks came to Vermont because of Senator Leahy. He was so important to Vermont financially. Now, then, when he retired and Senator Welch took over, you have to go to the back of the line, so to speak. And Senator Welch is carving out his own niche, but Senator Leahy was so powerful and was able to get so much done. Senator Welch is trying to find his path. So that's the financial part of it, and Senator Leahy. As of late, Senator Sanders is beginning to find his voice again. He's on a tour across the country on his Stop the Oligarchy tour with AOC, and I saw someplace last week 30,000 people showed up at an event for him. So he is beginning to gather steam again. Now, I will say this, and I'm glad AOC went with him, because Senator Sanders is getting up in age. I mean, that's just a fact.
Yes.
And although his voice is very strong, and although his message is very powerful, how much longer can he sustain that? And I think that Ocasio-Cortez will begin to take that mantle and run with it. So Senator Sanders is beginning to rile people up and make himself visible again in the consciousness of America. But how long he can sustain that, I don't know. Now, he just got reelected, so at least another 5 more years. He got elected last year, so at least another 5 more years.
But he has the image of a socialist.
Yeah. I always, kind of wonder with a lot of the things that Senator Sanders says is how are we going to pay for those things. I am not of that ilk. He is a little further left than I am. I'm more of a moderate. I would say. One of the things with and I'm I'm unapologetically moderate. I think now people want to. You have to be far left or far right, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I want to, and this is my philosophy. I want to be able to work both sides of the aisle to make sure that we come up with compromise. Here's the thing with compromise. If I don't get everything that I want, and you don't get everything that you want, and that bill comes out, it's probably a good bill and serves everybody. Generally, if a bill is far left or far right, it will not sustain the test of time. And so I will always work to have compromise and get things done.
So you are a centrist in a manner of speaking.
Oh, absolutely.
So how
that's a bad word lately, to be because people feel, you don't stand for anything. You know what I stand for? I stand for getting things done for Vermonters. And that should be my main goal. And however I do that, so long as it's lawful and so long as people are affected positively, then I've done my job.
Mm-hmm. So last year, as you know, Governor Scott publicly announced that he would not vote for Trump, and he didn't. So some people think that President Trump now is a very, very vindictive and unforgiving person. So do you think he might punish Vermont, and what are you going to do about it?
Well, I think Vermont is already being punished, and it's not in the forefront of headlines right now. Vermont's budget is $9 billion. $3 billion of that is federally funded. We have no idea what we're going to get, how much we're going to get, what is being funded. As a matter of fact, there is some rumblings that already $12 million in education funding may be taken away from Vermont. Vermont alone from the feds. So is he vindictive? Obviously so. You just ask the state of Maine right now. I wish I could give you a positive, concrete answer in how this is going to shake out, but I just don't know. And I almost think it is a philosophy of the MAGA movement to not have you know, to have you shoot in the dark, to throw so many things up against the wall that you don't know which one to attack first. Mm-hmm. It is frustrating. It is frustrating to try to tell people, I have no idea if I can fund the program that you're going, that it, in many instances will sustain your life. And it's a difficult situation. We're going to do the best that we can. We understand that this is going to continually happen, but I wish I could give a better answer than that, but that's where we're at right now.
Is Vermont economically stable now?
The long pause tells you that we have a lot of issues. Our healthcare system in Vermont is not very good financially, and it's because of the UVM Medical Center, and what we have to stabilize that. Obviously, our school funding system it has to be revamped. The governor and the legislature is working on that. There are a lot of things with Vermont, quite frankly, that are not affordable. And we're not attracting people from outside of Vermont to come and live here, one, because of housing, two, because of the incredibly low unemployment rate that we have. And there aren't many jobs, and the jobs that we have, people don't have a place that they can live. And three, the graying of Vermont. Vermont is getting to be an older state, and we're not replacing our older population with younger people coming in. So we have some issues. Do I think those issues can be solved? Yes. Are they going to be solved with gimmicks like the governor had a few years ago, where he promised if you came to Vermont, he'll give you $10,000? That's a gimmick. That's not going to sustain people to be here, to find housing, to find a good job, to make sure that they're being contributors to their communities. What we have to do is have good health care, inexpensive health care. We also have to make sure we have affordable housing, and make Vermont in particular an affordable place to live.
That is true.
Yeah.
So, but you need some businesses, more enterprises. So, what is the plan to attract entrepreneurs?
Sometimes we can't help ourselves. Mm-hmm. We need a certain amount of taxes to sustain our way of life here in Vermont. But if you tax businesses so much, then they may not want to stay. And I'll give you a perfect example of this. The cannabis industry is a recent business that Vermont said, you're legal. And now if you ask any dispensary of cannabis, they are being taxed exponentially, and so much so that they wonder, why am I in business? Or they go out of business if they open it up. So I think taxes are important. I think we tax too much in Vermont. We have taxed our older Americans. We are one of 7 states that tax Social Security for older Americans. We are one of 3 states that tax our military benefits over a certain amount. And I think that's just unsustainable. I am for not taxing either one of those entities and trying to find that revenue from someplace else.
So quite a few people agree with you on this point.
My party, not so much. I told you I was a centrist. But I am also been in business for 30 years. And someone who is trying to run a business, he has to look at that. And do I want to, where am I going? And we live on the border of New Hampshire and Vermont. You look at the number of businesses that are over on the other side of the river and to look at the number of businesses here on this side of the river, it's stark. And so what we have to do is make this more tax-friendly for businesses. We also have to make it more business-friendly. So we have some work to do. We definitely have some work to do as a state.
Coming to hard figures, you said about $3 billion come from the federal government, And hopefully not all of them will disappear.
Hopefully.
But some will disappear.
The amount of cutting that is happening, there is no doubt some of that will disappear. I just spoke to you about $19 million in educational funding that probably is going to go away.
Yeah.
So there's quite a bit. Universal School Meals, it was a grant that the federal government gave Vermont $14 million. That's going away. So there's some issues that we're going to have to deal with, and some holes in the dike that we're going to have to take our finger and plug in. It's just what holes, and because we don't know, and that's the frustrating thing. If we knew what the playing field was, if we knew what things weren't going to come our way, then we can adjust. But right now we don't know.
There are not many rich people in Vermont to tax.
That's true. And the funny part about it is the rich people who came here during the COVID and have second homes, we don't tax them as much for their second homes as we do people who live here and use this as their normal homestead. That's going to change. We're going to begin to tax. I just gave a soliloquy about not taxing, but these people we can tax because they can afford it. The rich second homeowners that don't necessarily aren't using their second homes as rental properties, we're not talking about that. We're talking about people that just have vacant homes, and we are in a housing crisis in Vermont. Just have second homes that they come to Vermont during ski season, during October when we have leaf peeper, in the summer when it's nice for a while. So Woodstock in particular has a tremendous amount of second homeowners, and so we have to have them cough up a little bit more money.
But it's good to have them.
Yes, I don't mind. I'd rather have those homes with people who live here and contribute to the community. But if we're going to have them, we should have them pay a little bit more.
Would you invite outsiders to build housing in Vermont?
I would invite anybody who wants to build housing to build housing. We need housing. I don't care where it comes from. We need affordable housing. We need middle class housing. I'll take any type of housing. We have a housing issue on all levels here in Vermont. And it's not just in the Upper Valley. It is in the Kingdom. It is in Burlington. It is in Brattleboro. We have a housing problem throughout the state. And we have to find ways, innovative ways, to solve this situation.
And you said the unemployment rate is very low here. So the immigration policy, how is it affecting us? I mean, agriculture, tourism, and trade, with Canada.
It is affecting us. The tourism, we get a lot of Canadians that come down for tourism, and there was an unofficial, and this is completely unofficial, but an unofficial stat that about 35% of the tourism from Canada did not come during the ski season, and that was disappointing, obviously for our ski industry here in Vermont. Now you talk about immigration. So a great deal of our service workers in hotels, our farm workers, are immigrants. And what I've been hearing from farmers and business owners, hotel owners, is that they're afraid to come to work. They're here legally, but they're afraid to come to work. They may have a green card, they may have a work visa, and they're afraid that ICE may show up, which they have in some instances, and have rounded up people who are here legally and shipped them off. And then you hear about it after the fact, even when there has been a court injunction. It is a scary time for immigrants in this country. And how we deal with it, I quite frankly, I don't know. We have work visas, but apparently ICE doesn't really pertain. I'm assuming they're not taking those and those work visas and saying, okay, you're good to go. They're rounding them up as well. So it's a scary time for being an immigrant in the United States, and I'm saddened by that.
Do you think Vermont employers are telling ICE people, look, we have these people with us? And
I don't think the employers are, because that's their workforce. I know that some law enforcement in Vermont is cooperating, not here in the Upper Valley, but in other sections of Vermont. I know in the Kingdom that there were some sheriff departments that were doing that, and it's a sad time. It's a sad time. I don't think people realize how much the immigrants really contribute to our culture, contribute to our economy, contribute to our workforce, and make things run. I saw a stat that said 10% of our economy is driven by immigrants. People on work visas, people who are here on green cards. And so you take those away, what does that do to our economy? If you want to look at it just from a pure number standpoint and not take into account the human rights issue of it, but just an economic standpoint, if you continue along this path, I believe that our economy will be in a place that, forget the tariffs, this will do more damage to our economy than we'll be back to 2008 and the banking crisis. It'll be that bad, I believe.
You mentioned Governor Scott's idea of $10,000 incentive. That didn't work. But the idea that we should have more people is important. How are we going to solve this problem of low population in Vermont? How do we attract people?
So everyone wants a magic bullet. This issue did not come to fruition in a year or 2 years or 3 years. It is going to take a concerted effort to bring industry here, to bring housing here, to bring up our school system and have a quality school system here. That's how you bring families here. To make things affordable here in Vermont. Vermont is unaffordable for a great many people. We have to make Vermont a great deal more affordable. I wish I could, say that, this is the answer, and this is the answer. But it's not. And it's going to take some time and a concerted effort in doing those things. I'm going to go back to the governor. The governor is really pushing the legislature to come up with their plan to solve the education crisis in 1 year. That's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. This took so long because there's so much that is involved in it, and so many tentacles. One tentacle that people aren't talking about, they're talking about consolidating schools and things of that nature, and that's one thing, and that's fine, and we can talk about that if you'd like. But the thing that's driving is health care. Vermont pays for all of its teachers its health care. Last year, health care went up 30%. It is scheduled to go up another 25%. And Vermont is on the hook for paying all of its teachers. So if you don't solve the healthcare crisis, you're not going to solve the education crisis. And so it's almost a ripple effect that one thing affects another thing, affects another thing. You don't have the housing for the people to come in. Like you said, I'm the executive director of the Aquatic Center. I just hired a new swim coach, head swim coach. I've got to find a place to live. And when I called my real estate agents that I know and trust, they say, okay, they're gonna work with me, but this is gonna be tough. Mm-hmm. He has his wife and has 2 cats and a dog, and it's gonna be difficult. And so these types of things you have to think about in trying to attract people to a municipality, a county, a state, and we don't right now have the infrastructure, and it's going to take a while before we do, and that's real. That's not pie in the sky. I'm always going to be a realist in how I attack things, and I talked to you earlier about the Windsor project. This is a multi-year deal. It's not going to happen next year. I mean, I may or may not be in office if the good people of the Windsor district vote me out. But what I have to do is begin the process to try to solve the situation.
Now, Vermont is a rural culture, and they want to maintain it. And just now you talked about industries. What kind of industries would fit into this environment of keeping it rural, if not rustic?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it is a quaint rural communities throughout the state. Agriculture is one of its main drivers. Logging is one of its main drivers. These types of rural industries, blue-collar industries that are here in our state. And you do have, and I felt it when I first came to Vermont in 2018, people that Vermont was good enough for their father, Vermont was good enough for their grandfather, and Vermont is good enough for them. And it is a slow change for people because now you have some people that have moved here, and they're at loggerheads of how do we progress, and some people want to stay the same. And what industry comes here? I don't know if I can really answer that, but what I can do is I can say we need some innovation. Quite frankly, I think any industry. If you have the population, that's one of the things that we struggle with. We just don't have the population, a little over 650,000 people. We don't have the population in any municipality to sustain a large industry. So, other than Burlington. Mm-hmm. And so we have to find those niche markets that can come in and employ 20, 30 people and grow those industries.
I'm going to rephrase the point you discussed earlier. So why is Vermont not a live free or die state like its neighbor New Hampshire, where there is no state tax, income tax, no sales tax? Also, by the way, there's no death tax. You know that.
Oh, yeah. I absolutely know, and we talked about taxes for a good portion of this conversation. A couple of things. One, this state, Vermont, is a bit of a safety net state. And what I mean by that is we want to take care of everyone and create somewhat of a safety net. New Hampshire, on the other hand, is very much a libertarian state. You can see it by the people they elect to office. I mean, the Republicans that we elect, I mean, they voted for Kamala Harris in the last election. So that tells you something right there. It's just a different philosophy on the two sides of the river. Vermont, and I quite frankly don't blame people, because I think we should take care of our sick, our disabled, our poor. Just what the Statue of Liberty said. I think sometimes we forget those words. New Hampshire, on the other hand, they feel a different way, and they're very libertarian. And it seems as if more people want to go on that side of the river than this. And I personally like Vermont a little better.
But housing is more expensive on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, there are some things that are more expensive, but for the most part, when you talk particularly the seniors, and this is the discouraging part, you want to keep our seniors, you want to keep our retired people, you want to keep them, but we tax them, and that's disheartening for me, and I think it's a short-term benefit, and it's not looking at the long game.
Well, this question is the last one, and it's a broad question,
Okay.
There is a widespread fear in the country today. Universities are in fear, schools and colleges. Courts are under threat. Congress has been emasculated. People are afraid of speaking. Where is America going, according to you? What is our future on the whole? This is nothing to do with Vermont, but you are a politician and a thinker, and you have a great future. I think so.
Well, first of all, thank you. I appreciate that. So I've thought about this a little bit, and one of the things that particularly the Trump administration is trying to do is erase history. Yeah. You hear what they're trying to do with the Smithsonian, and you hear that they're trying to any kind of monument that or book or entity that glorifies race which is a very important part of our history. They're trying to erase. But I've looked at several things. We have had a civil war and got through it. We had the suffragette movement where women could not vote, and we got through that. We had the civil rights movement where on the other side of the civil rights movement, we were better after that. We even went through 100-year pandemic where everyone's life was turned upside down. We got through all that and survived on the other end. I truly believe in my heart of hearts that we will survive this. I'm not saying that there won't be some pain. There will be some pain. Heck, we're only 2 months into this administration. There'll be some pain. And there'll be some things that we go, oh my God, how did that happen? But we'll come out on the other end better for it, I think. And we'll come out on the end stronger. So many people feel that George W. Bush's 8 years as president was probably some of the worst years that this country has experienced. But it's my contention that if we didn't have George W. Bush, we would not have had Barack Obama. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes you have to go through that pain. Yeah. You have to climb that hill to go down that hill. And I truly feel that we'll feel some pain, but we'll get to the other side.
Do you see some Democratic leaders today, young people, not Bernie Sanders, I don't think he has a future, in my view, other young people who are rising and people can look up to them, some name a few.
Yeah, there's a congressman in Florida that Frost that is that is a rising star. I talked about AOC as a rising star, and I just don't want to say Democrats, but I'm a Democrat for God's sakes. But I also will say this. We didn't know who Barack Obama was in 2004, and he gave a speech at the
I remember it.
at the Democratic National Convention, and 4 years later he was president. So we may not know who this person is because they may be young, charismatic, and doing things on the state level that we don't even know about. And so hopefully that will come to fruition. And like I said before, we'll come out on the other side better.
Like other Democrats, are you looking towards 2026 elections?
I'm just trying to get things done right now. I'm not focused on the elections as of yet. They tell me to be a good politician, you should always focus on the next election. I, like you said, a freshman senator just trying to find my way. And so once I know what I'm doing, maybe I can see what's going on in 2026.
Joe, it has been a very delightful conversation. Hopefully we'll get together again. And this podcast was produced by Chico S. Eastridge. Chico is a technical director and senior producer at Junction Arts and Media, White River Junction, Vermont.